It usually begins with something so small, so subtle, that most people brush it off. A little ache in the knee when climbing stairs, a strange stiffness in the fingers after gardening, or a sudden sharp sensation in the shoulder when reaching for a high shelf. These tiny twinges come and go, and life feels too busy to stop and think about them. As a doctor with over 30 years of experience, I've seen how often patients wait too long before taking joint pain seriously. Many tell me, I thought it was just age, or I figured it would go away. And sometimes it does, for a while. But pain is rarely random. It's the body's way of asking for attention, gently at first, then more urgently if we ignore it. I always tell my patients, pain is not the enemy, it's information. It's the body's early warning system, trying to protect us from further damage. And the earlier we listen, the better the outcome. When we wait too long, small issues can become chronic problems. But when we act early, even small changes can bring big relief. In this video, I'll help you understand where joint pain comes from and why it happens. I'll share the most common causes I've seen in my patients, from natural aging to silent inflammation. And more importantly, I'll show you what you can actually do to feel better. We're not here to just live with it. We're here to take back control. Let's begin. Aging is natural, but the pain that comes with it doesn't have to be. One of the most common things I hear from my patients over 50 is, well, I guess this is just part of getting older. And I always pause and gently say, not necessarily. Yes, our joints do change with age, but suffering isn't mandatory. It's just what happens when we're not given the right tools and knowledge to adapt. You see, inside each joint is a protective cushion called cartilage. Think of it like a smooth, rubbery surface that allows your bones to glide over each other without friction. Over time, that cartilage begins to thin and wear down, sometimes slowly, sometimes faster depending on genetics, lifestyle, and past injuries. As the cushion wears away, movement becomes less smooth, and small movements can start to feel stiff or painful. It's like a door hinge losing its oil. It still works, but it creaks and resists. Another change that surprises many people is the reduction of synovial fluid. This is the natural lubricant inside our joints that keeps everything gliding comfortably. After about age 50, the production of this fluid often slows down. The result? Joints feel drier, tighter, and less forgiving. You may notice it most in the morning or after sitting still for long periods, that familiar stiffness that takes a few minutes to work out. Our bones change too. With age, they can lose density and become more brittle, especially in postmenopausal women. This makes joints not only stiffer, but also more vulnerable to injury. Even the muscles and ligaments around the joints start to weaken, unless we actively maintain them. That's why movement becomes so important, not to push through pain, but to support the structures around the joint so they don't deteriorate further. But here's what I remind my patients. Just because something is common doesn't mean it's normal. Yes, these changes happen, but we are not helpless. There are ways to support the body as it ages, to reduce pain, and even restore some of the lost comfort and flexibility. I've seen patients in their 70s regain more movement and confidence than they had in their 50s. The key is understanding what's happening beneath the surface and responding with care, not resignation. In the next chapter, we'll talk about something that makes joint pain worse without us even realizing it: inflammation. But for now, just know this: aging may be inevitable, but how we age is something we can influence. It begins with awareness, and it continues with action. And I'm here to guide you through it, one step at a time. Let's talk about a word you've probably heard many times: inflammation. It might sound like a buzzword, but in my years as a doctor, I've come to see it as one of the most misunderstood forces in the body. In its healthy form, inflammation is a good thing. It's your body's way of protecting you. When you get a cut or a mild injury, your immune system sends blood and healing cells to the area to repair the damage. That's inflammation doing its job, fast, focused, and temporary. But the problem begins when that alarm system never shuts off. This is what we call chronic inflammation, a slow-burning internal fire that never really goes out. Unlike a swollen ankle after a sprain, this kind of inflammation is quieter, but much more damaging over time. It lingers in your joints, causing stiffness, pain, and gradual breakdown of cartilage. And the worst part? You often don't realize it's happening until the damage is already done. When patients come to me with ongoing joint pain, one of the first things I consider is inflammation playing a hidden role here? In most cases, the answer is yes. For example, in osteoarthritis, the wear and tear of cartilage is usually followed by low-grade inflammation in the joint. That's why it can hurt more after activity. Your body is reacting to microscopic damage, trying to repair it, but in doing so, it also creates swelling, pain, and stiffness. Now compare that to rheumatoid arthritis, which I've diagnosed in many patients over the years. That's a very different story. In RA, the immune system goes rogue. It starts attacking your own joints as if they were foreign invaders. This autoimmune response leads to intense inflammation, joint deformity, and often affects multiple areas of the body symmetrically, both hands, both knees, etc. It tends to strike earlier in life and often comes with fatigue and general discomfort. The good news is there are powerful treatments for it today, but early detection is critical. I want you to think of inflammation as your body yelling, "Pay attention here." If we ignore it, the voice gets louder and the damage gets deeper. But if we listen early, through better food choices, gentle movement, stress reduction, and sometimes medical intervention, we can calm the fire before it consumes the joint. I've had patients dramatically reduce their joint pain by simply adjusting their diet and activity levels. No pills, no surgeries. It's not always easy, but it is absolutely possible. In the next chapter, we'll look at what might be making inflammation worse without you even realizing it. From the way you sit, to the foods on your plate, to the shoes on your feet. Sometimes the most powerful enemies of our joints are the quietest ones, and once you learn to spot them, you'll be able to change your pain story for good. Sometimes, joint pain isn't caused by trauma or disease. It's caused by habits so familiar, we barely notice them. Over the years, I've met hundreds of patients who asked, "Why do my knees hurt if I haven't injured them?" And more often than not, the answer lies in daily behaviors. Things we think are harmless, like sitting for long hours, carrying extra weight, or slouching at a desk, can quietly sabotage our joint health over time. They don't cause sudden, sharp pain, but they wear you down slowly year after year. Let's start with weight. I always explain to my patients that every extra 5 kilograms, about 11 pounds, you carry translates into roughly 20 extra kilograms of force on your knees with every step. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack all day, and then imagine your joints doing that load-bearing work without rest. The knees, hips, and lower back are especially sensitive to this pressure. It doesn't mean you need to be thin to be healthy. It means even small reductions in weight can have a huge impact on pain relief. Then there's inactivity, which might seem harmless, but is one of the biggest enemies of joint health. When you sit for hours, watching TV, scrolling your phone, or even working at a desk, your joints become stiff, your muscles weaken, and blood flow to the area drops. The body is designed to move. Motion nourishes the joints by circulating synovial fluid, which keeps them flexible and cushioned. Without movement, that nourishment stops and stiffness sets in. Another silent culprit is poor posture. Whether it's hunching over a laptop or standing with your weight shifted to one leg, poor alignment puts uneven stress on your joints. I've seen shoulder pain caused by years of rounding the back and hip issues linked to standing habits. And once that misalignment becomes your normal, it can lead to imbalances throughout the body. The good news? Posture can be trained, often with simple awareness and a few daily exercises. I tell my patients that joint damage rarely comes from one big moment. It comes from small, repeated choices. Your joints remember how you sit, how you walk, how you move, or how you don't. That's why I encourage everyone, especially after 50, to relearn how to move in ways that support the body instead of straining it. With awareness and consistency, we can reverse much of the silent wear before it turns into chronic pain. Next, we'll talk about food, specifically how what you eat either helps your joints or hurts them. Inflammation often begins in the gut, not the knees. And by changing what's on your plate, you might change what's happening in your joints more than you ever imagined. When patients ask me, "Does food really make a difference for joint pain?" I always smile and say, "More than you think." Over the years, I've watched people go from daily stiffness and swelling to moving freely again, simply by changing what they eat. Inflammation doesn't start in the knee, it often starts in the kitchen. What you put on your plate either feeds the fire or helps put it out. And once you learn the basics, it's surprisingly easy to make smarter choices. Let's begin with foods that help your joints heal. Omega-3 fatty acids found in fish like salmon and sardines have powerful anti-inflammatory properties. So do leafy greens like spinach, kale, and arugula, rich in antioxidants that support the immune system. Spices like turmeric and ginger have been used for centuries to reduce inflammation naturally. Even a handful of berries with their vibrant color and high polyphenol content can help lower the inflammatory load. I often encourage my patients to build their meals around color. If your plate looks like a rainbow, you're probably on the right track. Now, let's talk about the enemies. Sugar is one of the biggest culprits when it comes to chronic inflammation. So are refined carbs, like white bread and pastries, fried foods, and heavily processed snacks filled with chemicals your body doesn't recognize. These foods don't just cause weight gain, they trigger an inflammatory response in your system, often silently. I'm not saying you have to give them up forever, but the less often they appear in your diet, the better your joints will feel. What surprises many patients is how quickly they feel a difference when they change the way they eat. Within just a few weeks of reducing processed food and increasing anti-inflammatory choices, pain often lessens and energy returns. It's not magic, it's biology. Our joints respond to what flows through our bloodstream every single day. The cleaner the fuel, the smoother the engine runs. I always tell people, food is either medicine or a slow poison. That may sound dramatic, but after years of seeing the difference on real x-rays and in real lives, I stand by it. Your next meal won't cure arthritis, but over time, your daily choices can absolutely shift the level of pain you experience, and that to me is incredibly empowering. Next, we'll explore movement and how even small, gentle activity can keep your joints younger than your age. You don't have to run marathons, but you do have to move. Let's talk about why. One of the most powerful things I've learned in all my years as a doctor is this: the less you move, the more you hurt. It may seem counterintuitive. Why would movement help if your joints already ache? But here's the truth. Joints are like sponges. When you move, you gently compress and release them, allowing fresh synovial fluid to circulate. That fluid is their nourishment, and without it, joints become stiff, dry, and painful. Many of my older patients believe they need to rest more to avoid joint pain, but too much rest actually weakens the muscles around the joints, making movement harder, not easier. Instead of rest, what your joints really need is gentle, regular motion. Walking, swimming, cycling on a stationary bike, or doing light stretches, all of these support the joints without overloading them. Even a short 15-minute walk twice a day can make a remarkable difference over time. Let's talk specifics. For knees, I often recommend seated leg raises, step-ups onto a low platform, and gentle squats with support. For hips, slow side leg lifts, pelvic tilts, or simple yoga poses like the bridge can help stabilize the area. For shoulders, controlled arm circles, wall push-ups, and stretching with a towel behind the back can increase mobility safely. None of these require expensive equipment or a gym. Just your body, a chair, and a little consistency. The key is low impact, high reward. If you feel sharp pain, stop, but don't confuse discomfort with danger. It's normal to feel a bit stiff or awkward at first. Start slowly, listen to your body, and gradually increase the time or repetitions. Most importantly, choose something you actually enjoy. If you like it, you'll keep doing it, and consistency is what truly heals. I've seen patients in their 70s and even 80s improve their posture, walk with more confidence, and reduce or eliminate the need for pain medication, all by adding a few minutes of movement each day. No miracle drugs, no surgeries, just small, thoughtful steps. And tomorrow we'll talk about another kind of step, knowing when to seek help and what to expect when you do. There comes a point when self-care isn't enough, and knowing when that moment arrives is just as important as any exercise or food choice. If you experience persistent joint pain that lasts more than a few weeks, especially if it interferes with sleep or daily activities, it's time to check in with a professional. Other signs that shouldn't be ignored include swelling that doesn't go down, noticeable changes in joint shape or alignment, and morning stiffness lasting over an hour. If your joint feels hot, red, or suddenly weak, that could signal an active inflammation or infection. Pain is not weakness, it's a message, and you deserve to understand what it's trying to say. I know many people are nervous about doctor visits, especially when it involves the possibility of a diagnosis like arthritis. But let me tell you from years of experience, early diagnosis changes everything. At your appointment, your doctor will likely ask about your pain patterns, daily habits, and any past injuries. They may order x-rays, blood tests, or even MRI scans to get a clearer picture of what's happening inside the joint. These tools don't just label a problem, they help us build a plan that works for you. Treatment doesn't always mean medication or surgery. In fact, most patients I see start with lifestyle adjustments, targeted exercises, physical therapy, weight management, and anti-inflammatory nutrition. Sometimes, we add short-term medications or joint injections to break the cycle of pain while we work on the root cause. And in more advanced cases, yes, surgical options exist, but no one jumps straight to that. The goal is always restore movement, reduce pain, and return you to the life you want to live. I tell my patients that taking care of your joints isn't a luxury. It's a long-term investment in your independence, comfort, and joy. The ability to walk without pain, to reach for a hug, to garden, dance, or play with your grandchildren. That's freedom, and it's worth protecting. You don't have to do it alone. Support, science, and solutions are here when you're ready to take the next step. So wherever you are on your journey, with a slight twinge or chronic pain, know this. Healing is possible. Not overnight and not without effort, but absolutely, positively possible. And I'll be here to help you every step of the way.